Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It is great to have you here on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Friday?
Happy Friday. Father's Day weekend.
Yeah, Father's Day weekend. I guess on this show, I'll probably say Happy Father's Day to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
We got a lot to talk about. We got some breaking news that broke yesterday. We got a couple questionable comments from a former NFL head coach, and we're also going to preview Game 4 of tonight's NBA Finals between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. Could the Celtics sweep? We'll talk about that later on in the show. But let's begin with our first topic, and this is a pretty crazy announcement. The fact that Trevor Lawrence now is tied for the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, signing a massive 5-year, $275 million contract, which you could see on screen, is tied for the highest contract, tied with Joe Burrow as the most expensive quarterback in the NFL, currently getting paid $55 million annually. And not only that, he's also getting paid $142 million guaranteed at signing. And once he puts his name on that piece of paper and signs that contract, he will earn $37.5 million just for that little signature. So it's pretty crazy. Also, $200 million in full guarantees across that entire 5-year contract. This is a pretty nuts contract, but this is the quarterback market we are seeing right now. I would like to know, do you think that this was a good idea for the Jacksonville Jaguars to sign Trevor Lawrence relatively early in his career?
Well, they went out and got Mac Jones. That's a joke. So
is it though?
I don't know. We'll see. I think that's a lot of money to give him. He had a pretty poor 2023 season. He had a great 22 season. His 23 season was marred by injuries, though, concussion, ankle, shoulder. And they were 8-3 to start the season, and then after he started getting hurt there, they went 1-5. So they think he's the future. They think they paid for the future potential, his future potential, his leadership. He needs to cut down on the turnovers and improve his situational football. I mean, throwing the ball out of bounds when there's nobody open downfield, taking the checkoff guy once in a while, making sure you don't blow a chance for 3 points when you're down in the red zone and you can't convert on third down. Those kinds of things are things he's got to work on. But it's an interesting deal. It starts in 2026.
Yeah.
Right? So he's going to play a couple years on his old contract, and then he's going to have this contract from 2026 to 2030. So you think about the payout doesn't happen for a while. He gets $200 million guaranteed, $275 million total deal. He receives a $37.5 million signing bonus for just putting his name on the contract. The Jaguars say they have a goal of extending their core players. Lawrence is a foundational talent, according to their GM. He's a 6th quarterback with above a $50 million a year contract. Burrow at 55 is tied with him. Goff 53, Herbert 52.5, Jackson 52, Hurts 51. It's a lot of money. Mahomes is a steal at $46.3 million.
Yeah.
But his contract's $500 million over 10 years.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's hurting too badly. He's a ninth quarterback with $100 million more guaranteed. Watson 230, Burrow 146.5, Jackson 135, Herbert 133.7, Goff 113.6, Hurts 110, Murray 103.3, and Josh Allen $100 million. He's beyond grateful to continue in Jacksonville. He says his family and his family love the city. Thank you for the belief in me. That is a big belief. $275 million worth, or $200 million guaranteed. He's fourth in passing for the Jags in history, 11,770 yards. He's had 58 TDs. He's 21-31 because he got off to a horrible start there with Urban Meyer. 3-13, I think, that year. AFC title, South title in 2022. Rallied his team from 27-0 to a 31-30 win over the Chargers, but then lost to the Chiefs the next game. 2022 was his breakout year, 4,113 yards, 25 TDs, 8 interceptions. Started 3-7 and then went 6-1. Was ninth in QBR. I think he benefited from having Doug Peterson as his coach, who did very well in Philadelphia there and won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles.
Yeah.
So, although Peterson's had, with the Eagles, that was his high point. After that, he kind of went downhill. And we kind of saw that last year a little bit with the Jaguars. They declined over what they were in 2022, although Lawrence being hurt had a lot to do with that. He's had 60 turnovers in 3 years, 21 in 2023, which is a league high. Only 11 quarterbacks have done as bad, but they include Warren Moon and Peyton Manning and John Elway, who are all Hall of Famers. So I guess, it's a reasonable deal given what he did in 2022, given that he's young, given that he was a fantastic college quarterback and came out, was the number one pick in the draft that year. I guess they're going to see how it goes. I mean, he's signed up till 2030 now.
Yeah. Well, I think, we always talk about with coaches and players, what have you done for me lately? So I decided to compile a decent sample size. Let's go half a season, the past 8 games that Trevor Lawrence has been a starter for. And the numbers are not good. 2-6 record, 62% completion percentage. The passing yards I'm pretty okay with, 257. 10 touchdowns, only 12 total turnovers. Passer rating at 84.1. And so that got me kind of going. What else are what are we not realizing about Trevor Lawrence right now? So let's break down another mystery quarterback comparison. And last time I did this, I was talking about Mac Jones and Drake May's scouting reports. But let's begin with Trevor Lawrence. So who's this quarterback? 50 games played, winning percentage about the same, passing yards a game. Trevor Lawrence is about 30 more. Touchdown interception ratio is the same. Passing yards per attempt, QBB has a little bit more. Passer rating, QBB has more as well. This is total games played. So this is so starting and not.
Josh Allen.
Gardner Minshew. And not only that, it gets worse. How about this? We'll go 48 games started. Let's be fair. Each of these are starting quarterbacks. The numbers are relatively the same. Pretty exact. I know the yards are a little bit more, but total touchdowns is basically the same. Mm-hmm. Turnovers are the same. Even the team impact offensively is the same. What's fascinating is that this is actually basically quarterback B. His contract looks like a steal in comparison to this because the quarterback is Daniel Jones. Danny Dimes, who I'm saying should be a backup quarterback, he is getting paid $40 million a year, and we think that this is because, it's a complete robbery. The Giants made a massive mistake, and yet Trevor Lawrence is making $15 million more annually on average. Yet the quarterbacks are exactly the same. He's also number 2 in fumbles behind Justin Fields, number 2 in fumbles lost behind Justin Fields. So Trevor Lawrence has a serious turnover issue. He can't hold on to the ball. And then on top of that, he hasn't had great production offensively. He looked great in year 2. Coming from the Urban Meyer year, I think anything will look better than how he looked coming out off the Urban Meyer year. And lo and behold, what we see the next season? A little bit of a regression. Now, I think the only good part about signing him now, about 2 years off of when you need to, is that the quarterback market we've already seen. The quarterback market is completely screwed up. We don't know what a middle-tier quarterback looks like because we think, at least in my opinion, I think a lot of people's opinions, Daniel Jones is not a great quarterback, and yet he's getting paid $40 million a year. Kirk Cousins, I would say, at least the past season, he was looking like a top 10 quarterback before he got injured. But what does Trevor Lawrence look? Because I don't think right now he cracks the top 10 or maybe not even top 12 quarterbacks currently. And that could be due to injury. But even then, he did start off hot. I will agree with you. But in the past 8 games, he decided to play through the injury. We say the same argument with Baker Mayfield. He looked bad in that last season with Cleveland, even though he was hurt with a torn labrum and I believe another injury. But it doesn't matter. He was out on the field. So I'm taking what you give me. If you're out on the field and you're hurt, you decided to play. That was your decision. You thought you were good enough to play, so now I have to look at the production you give me on the field. So yes, those 8 games, and I'll bring them up one more time. Those 8 games, you might say, oh, well, that's a small sample size. You're nitpicking the last 8 games where he was bad. It's what he gave me, injury or not. He did not perform at his best. Is this $55 million a year worthy? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. But it's smart that the Jaguars would do this because the quarterback market, we don't know. Jared Goff got paid $53.5 million, I believe the number was. Jalen Hurts made it to a Super Bowl. He's getting paid only $51. Mahomes has won 3 Super Bowls. He's getting paid $45 on average annually. And yet, lo and behold, we're seeing, Trevor Lawrence. He's won 1 playoff game, by the way, the same amount as Daniel Jones. And he's making $15 million more.
Jackson is upset now that he signed his deal. I mean, his guaranteed money is much less than these other guys, $135, and much less than Trevor Lawrence at $200 million guaranteed. And you show the stats. He's not about the same as Daniel Jones.
Let's go through it again.
Look at that.
Gardner Minshew.
That's an interesting stat.
Yeah. And then this is Daniel Jones. Yeah. I mean, what do you want me to do here? Like this is not this is just how their careers have panned out. These are the starting numbers for Daniel Jones versus Trevor Lawrence. And I think everybody would say Trevor Lawrence is better than both those quarterbacks. But the production, the numbers-wise, it's saying they're a lot closer than you want to actually believe. Now we have to think about this. Dak Prescott wants an extension. He's asking for $60 million, apparently, like we've been talking about. Ian Rappaport says $60 million. We also have Jordan Love looking for an extension. We got Tua looking for an extension. I mean, all these quarterbacks, what is the quarterback market? Is now $55 million the baseline for new contracts?
Well, over 50 seems to be for new contracts, right?
I'll give you over 50.
I don't think Tua's going to get his extension.
Really?
I think they're going to let him play and see how he does, and then they can franchise tag him if they can't strike a deal with him.
I would say probably the first $60 million quarterback, if it is not Dak Prescott, will be C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud or Brock Purdy, because those guys also, Brock Purdy's going to his 3rd year, C.J.'s going into his 2nd.
Brock Purdy takes him to the Super Bowl again. I guarantee he'll get
he's getting $60 million. Yeah, absolutely. And then C.J. Stroud already looked like an MVP candidate through half the year last year, won a playoff game. And then his inexperience showed in the 2nd game against the Ravens.
I think they're going to be smart to try to do a deal with him sooner rather than later.
Well, that's exactly what the Jaguars are doing, and that's why I think that was the smartest move because the quarterback market will move.
Stroud.
Right. But I'm saying it's the same mindset with Lawrence. He's 2 years off of his contract actually hitting, and what you could say is, well, the team is still in Super Bowl contention potentially. I don't fully believe that just because I think the division itself got harder. I think the Titans with their wide receiver core and building up an offensive line, they're going to be slightly better. I don't think they're winning the division. I want to make that clear.
You think they can beat the Jaguars?
I'm just saying, the division got harder. The Texans went from a 3-13-1 team to year 1 with C.J. Stroud and a bunch of B and B-plus moves in last offseason. They went to 10 wins and won a playoff game. The Colts have Anthony Richardson, who went 2-2. We've only seen him for 4 games, but the promise was there. I think Shane Steichen is going to do a fine job at head coach. Now, the Jaguars here with Doug Peterson, they lost their number 1 guy, Calvin Ridley. They replaced him with Gabe Davis. So I'm taking what you give me here. If it's really that this is the team that's constructed, and it's definitely not going to move any big-time pieces anymore, this offense, we got to look at it. The wide receiver core right now, I mean, it's okay. Brian Thomas, a beautiful rookie. I think he's going to be pretty good. I think 6'4", runs a 4.3 if I'm not mistaken. He's a very, very fast, big dude. But Gabe Davis, he's a wide receiver too, and you're going to play him probably big time. You got Devin Duvernay from the Ravens. He's okay, not great. Christian Kirk, I think, is a nice piece. You got rid of Zay Jones, who wasn't all that great. But I don't think this team is Super Bowl caliber, and your division's only going to get harder in the hardest conference, compared to the AFC, NFC. I think this is a situation that obviously the Jaguars needed to make, because the chance of you hitting on a quarterback that is as good or better than Trevor Lawrence is a very slim margin. Just look at the 21 draft class. All that potential there. And 4 out of the 5 of them are complete busts, most likely. We still haven't seen Trey Lance. So let's go 3 out of 4. We'll take Trey Lance just out of the equation yet. 3 out of 4 have been busts, and Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be this generational player.
Well, he played well. He played well in 22. He had a great playoff game there.
He did. Came back from
They played okay against the Chiefs, too. It wasn't like they got blown out.
They had 2 opportunities to take the lead.
He was hurt last year in those games where he played poorly. And you're right. Why was he out there playing if he was really hurt?
Exactly.
He shouldn't have been playing.
If you're out there playing, I'm taking
I think they probably, that was because they still had a shot at the playoffs.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right. They went to the last game of the season. They could have still been in contention if he hadn't thrown it. Didn't he throw it out of bounds there on a 4th down? Very poor play. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's a lot of money.
It is.
He ought to be very happy with it. He's locked up there until 2030. Doesn't look like Mac Jones is going to get much chance to get on the field. He's only got a 1-year deal there anyway, right? Then he's a free agent.
Yeah, it's his 4th year. They didn't take his 5th year option. They denied it. So I think it's going to be fascinating to watch what Trevor Lawrence does this season with another set of weapons. But I'll say this: the offensive line wasn't that great. The defense was underwhelming. They have Travis Etienne, which is a pretty nice piece to have in the backfield. You added David White, wide receiver. I think there's a lot of moving pieces the Jaguars have. Evan Ingram, I think, was a surprise just because coming from the Giants and looking that poorly. Was it Daniel Jones? Was it just the Giants? Turns out to be that it was probably the Giants because he's played pretty well with the Jaguars. So the pieces, I don't know if they're good enough to compete for a Super Bowl or win a couple playoff games. Hell, compete for their division. I think a bunch of those teams are going to be surprising. You give Will Levis even more players around him. I think the major ding on the Titans is Will Levis worked his best in play action. You got rid of Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in the league, replaced him with Tony Pollard, who had 1 game of over 100 yards or more. So I don't know if he can work the play action. I think he'll grow, so we'll have to see how that turns out. But the division got much harder. The conference is the hardest out of the 2. I think it's just an unfortunate situation, but that's kind of what the NFL is now. You're paying him $55 million. Is he Patrick Mahomes level? Is he Joe Burrow level? Is he Justin Herbert level? Is he any one of these guys who's getting paid? Matt, let's bring up the contracts one more time. Just because we got to establish, is Trevor Lawrence on the same level as any of these guys? I don't think so.
I don't think he's as good as Joe Burrow, that's for sure.
Jared Goff.
Maybe not. Jared Goff had a very good year last year.
Justin Herbert.
Maybe. But, Justin Herbert didn't have a very good year last year.
Lamar Jackson and I'm combining those.
He's not as good as Lamar Jackson.
So we have a maybe on probably maybe on Justin Herbert, and we'll see on Jared Goff.
Jalen Hurts.
I'm saying yes.
I think
Jalen Hurts is better.
Yeah, he's a better runner.
He's a better athlete. I think he's just a better quarterback. Made it farther in the playoffs. It's going to be fascinating to see how the Jaguars do this year. But $55 million, $200 in full guarantees, $37.5 million for writing Trevor Lawrence on a piece of paper. It's pretty impressive stuff. All right, let's get into our next topic here. So former NFL head coach Jay Gruden had an interesting quote on the Clean Pocket podcast, and this is what he had to say on who should be the Steelers' starting quarterback. Quote, I'm going with Justin Fields, and I'm not even blinking. I don't think the Steelers, let me bring up the quote. Here we go. Quote, I'm going with Justin Fields, and I'm not even blinking. I don't think the Steelers knew that he was going to be available, and they got him for a steal. Russell's had his day in the sun. He's been to a Super Bowl. His days are behind him. Now you had a guy that can throw as good or better than him and is a way better athlete that's sitting right behind him and who's 25 years old, obviously referencing Justin Fields. So he's going with Justin Fields as the starting quarterback, but I want to know, what's your reaction to Gruden's comments, and do you agree or disagree that Justin Fields should be the rightful starter of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024?
I think the thought is that Russell Wilson will have to implode for Fields to get a chance to start. But he might do that. He might implode, and maybe not in preseason, and maybe not in the first few games, but later on in the season, maybe he will implode. That's possible. I mean, a lot of people think he's done. He's washed up. He's past his prime. He didn't have such a bad year last year, but we know a lot of the stats are kind of cooked up because he was playing it safe with a short passing game. So he can't run the way he used to. I mean, he's nowhere near the athlete that Fields is. And I think that the real dynamic here is Arthur Smith and his offense. I mean, Arthur Smith's offense is running. He wants to run the ball a lot. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to run the ball that much, but the quarterbacks he had with the Falcons, he really had not much choice. I mean, they couldn't throw the ball to hit a broadside of a barn. They were poor. So maybe he would like to throw the ball more. He just didn't have the talent to do it, so he had to adjust his offense. But if he is going to be run-oriented offense, then Fields is probably a better thrower, in terms of arm strength than Russell Wilson. He could probably throw a better deep ball. He's the better athlete, and he's 25 years old. Smith's offense is going to be run-heavy with limited passing, and the Falcons only threw 530 passes last year, 31 per game, which was actually more than the Steelers. I think they see Fields as maybe more dynamic. He has, in the running game, he has a 6.2 yards per carry. If you're in a situation where you're going to throw the ball 20 times a game, you're going to run some bootlegs, you're going to have the zone reads, you're going to have designed runs and quarterback running with a play action, a throw option on the running, then you're going to set that up with the throws up with a lot of play action because you're going to be run heavy. Then maybe Justin Fields deserves a look. So it'll be interesting to see.
I'm going to stay on this hill. While I don't think that Russell Wilson is a good quarterback anymore, great quarterback anymore, and I'm sticking with my theory until proven otherwise, legitimate, tangible proof otherwise. I'll say this: he is on a very steep downward trend. His last year in Seattle wasn't that great. The first year in Denver was painful to watch. The second year in Denver, it looks great on paper, but in reality, it was like, it's kind of skewed there. He has the most checkdowns in the past 2 years out of any quarterback. The only quarterback who was double-digit in percentage of checkdowns is Russell Wilson. And then Justin Fields. Well, the numbers say, if we want to talk about the numbers for example, the numbers scream Russell Wilson, who beats Justin Fields in completion percentage, quarterback record, passing yards per attempt, passing yards per game, passing touchdowns, interceptions, and quarterback rate, passer rating. He leads in all those categories. Now, Justin Fields wins handily in running the football. He has more rushing attempts, more rushing yards, more rush yards per attempt, more rushing touchdowns. But where it really gets bad is the self-inflicting wounds. Russell Wilson has nowhere near the same amount of self-inflicting wounds that Justin Fields has. Because as everybody knows, and I've said this several times on the show, Justin Fields, since he entered the league, has the most fumbles in the NFL. The most. Then you want to know the number? 38 fumbles. He has 38 fumbles. Meanwhile, Russell Wilson in the past 3 years has nowhere near there. He's got a total, in the past 3 years, he has 22. So he has, 16 less? So these self-inflicting wounds hurt the team and Justin Fields' credibility, his skill set, because we're taking a look at him. It's like, well, okay, he's averaging 166 passing yards a game. If you want to round it up, it's 166.9. So we'll go 167 passing yards a game. He has 40 touchdowns to 30 picks. He's 10-28. And even though Russell Wilson looked god-awful, worse than Justin Fields probably has ever looked, he still has a better record of 17-27. He has a better completion percentage, has more pass yards. If you want to add total yards, Russell Wilson still wins by a decent shot. So if people are into the total yards and total touchdowns, Russell Wilson still wins over the same time frame. And I'll also add on to this. If you want to go with the better quarterback, just look at the schedule. They're already dead last in odds to win the AFC North, but let's take a look at the schedule. It's incredibly hard. It's anywhere, I've seen, there's different ranges depending on how you look at it. It's either the second hardest or the hardest in the NFL. So I think worst case scenario, the only games you win, week 2 at Broncos, week 4 at Colts, week 6 at Raiders, week 8 versus the Giants, week 10 at Commanders, and week 16 at Ravens, because the Steelers are 1-5 against the Ravens in the past couple years.
You think they're going to beat them?
So we're going to split. We're going to split the Ravens because the Steelers have gone 1-5 in the past 3 years. That's the worst case scenario. You go 6-11. The best and most likely scenario, and this is Vegas now. This isn't percentages of win probability. This is percentages. And I even give the Steelers the benefit of the doubt. If they were underdogs by 1 point or favorites, I gave them the win. They're 8-9. The only wins I add on top of that are week 3 versus the Chargers, who they're 1 point favorites against. The week 6 against the Raiders, who they're actually tied in the point spread with. I'll give them the win over the Jets. Home against the Jets, they're +1 underdogs, but I'm going to give it to them anyway. Week 14 versus the Browns, +1 underdogs, and then week 18 as well. So, and by the way, I took out, if they were 1.5 point underdogs or up, I took them out. So, for instance, that week 16 game at Ravens, that's a loss now. Even though history says the Steelers will beat them, based on Vegas's betting, Vegas's odds, I took it out. So really, 8-9, you get the win against the Bengals at the last game of the season as well. So it's weeks 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 10, 14, and 18. Those are the only wins. Mm-hmm. So I split it down the middle.
They're 10-7 last year, right?
I think they were 9-8.
I think they were 10-7, right?
Last year, 2020, 10-7. You're right. My fault. I'm splitting it down the middle.
So you don't think they can beat? They don't think they can beat last year's record?
I'm going with not even close.
8-9.
No, I'm saying that's the best or most likely. Uh-huh. And I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I gave them +1 underdogs. When they were +1 underdogs, I gave them the win.
Okay.
But +1.5 and above, it's still a loss.
I got it.
So I'm actually going to split it down the middle between worst case scenario and Vegas's betting favorites. 7-10. The Steelers will go 7-10. Because this is the hardest schedule in the NFL. They have a quarterback in Justin Fields who is not very good anyway. Russell Wilson, who's on a downward trend, and I do think Arthur Smith is the best OC for either of these quarterbacks. I think he'll work perfectly fine with either of these quarterbacks. I just think they don't have the proper talent anymore. I think Justin Fields he's not that good of a quarterback. He had a lot of up potential, and obviously, as the Bears have historically always done with quarterbacks, drill them into the ground and make them not look that great. Now, Mitch Trubisky was a little bit of an outlier. He actually had a very, very good season. They made the playoffs. But in totality, look where he is now. The Bears historically have not had a good quarterback. They've never had a quarterback throw for 30 or more touchdowns, and never had a quarterback that threw for, 4,000 or more yards? Maybe even worse than that. But I think it's 4,000.
They've never had a quarterback throw for 4,000
4,000 yards.
Never. That's something.
In the history of the Bears, they're one of the oldest
They're one of the oldest franchises.
And they've never had that. 30-plus touchdowns or 4,000-plus yards.
Yeah. I think the Steelers will split in their division.
So you go, they go 3 for 3.
I think they'll beat the Browns once. I think they'll beat the Ravens once, and I think they'll beat the Bengals once. And that's what you said, right?
On my worst case scenario, I only had them splitting with the Ravens once. Yeah. That's it.
You have the Browns beating them twice?
I do. Vegas says, by the way, Vegas also has them losing out in their division as well. Mm-hmm. But I gave them the benefit of the doubt with the 1 point underdog spread. Mm-hmm. So they win one game against the Browns and one game against the Bengals.
I think they'll beat the Commanders.
I have that in both my situations.
The Broncos.
I have that in both my situations.
And I bet they'll beat the Colts. I think they'll beat the Raiders.
They're actually Vegas has them underdogs against the Colts.
Really? I think they'll beat them. I think Richardson is going to have a hard year, his sophomore year. He didn't play much in his
4 games
before he got hurt. So I have them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wins.
So yeah, you're with Vegas with 8 and 9, just a different array of wins and losses.
Who knows? They might. I don't know. It's going to be tough for them to. Who knows what the Jets are really going to be like? We're talking about them a little bit later. But yeah, you're right. They have a very hard schedule. It is a very hard schedule.
I mean,
so
the last 8 games are brutal.
I'm 8-9 on them.
The last 8 games: Ravens, Browns, Bengals, Browns, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals.
Yeah.
That is a brutal last 8 games.
I mean, I think the Bengals have to win their last game. I don't think they'll win that. Maybe they'd beat them in Week 13. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I think in the quarterback situation that the Steelers have, having this schedule to add on top of the fact that your quarterback situation is not very good, but are both quarterbacks an upgrade over Kenny Pickett? I'm going with the overwhelmingly yes. I think if Kenny Pickett was the quarterback, we're probably seeing 5 wins, 6 wins.
How about Mason Rudolph?
I'll go 7. I mean, I think the veteran leadership of Russell Wilson, I think, has him at the edge, and that's why, we always hear the word pole position in the quarterback room. Justin Fields, is a phenomenal athlete. But I just think if you get down to the bare bones of it all, he's not great. 40 touchdowns, 30 picks, 10-28 record, leads the league in fumbles since he entered the league.
Yeah, but what if they install an offense like the Ravens used to run before Lamar turned into more of a passer? I mean, Lamar ran the ball a lot. Fields could do that.
Fields did have a very run-heavy first year. And they went, 3-13?
The option play could work pretty well for the Steelers because they have 2 decent running backs, too.
They do.
And their O-line's pretty
Jalen
good.
Warren and Najee Harris. Both are phenomenal running backs.
Yeah.
Year 2, right? The Bears tried to make Justin Fields this tremendous runner. He had nearly 1,200 yards, 8
Not
touchdowns.
like the Steelers have great wideouts now. Pickens they still have, but they got rid of
Deontay Johnson.
Johnson, yeah.
That is true, but they also have Roman Wilson. They have a couple nice pieces. Freiermuth I like a lot. Offensive line, they added a couple nice pieces. The defense always is surprisingly good, and I mean, obviously, T.J. Watt is tremendous. But you know what? I'm sticking 7-10 is my guess. You have 8-9. If you go with Vegas and just the betting favorite, and you include my little tidbit of, if you give them a +1 underdog, you give them the win anyway, you'll still get 8-9. So I don't think this is outrageous. Not like your Bears 5-12 take, but we're gonna take a break though. But coming up, we're gonna break down Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Can the Mavs hold on and make history in the upcoming weeks? As well as Vikings reporter Alec Lewis of The Athletic says that J.J. McCarthy is squarely behind Sam Darnold as well as Nick Mullens to be quarterback 3. We'll talk about all that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It is great to have you here on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So the Celtics and Mavericks are playing tonight, 8:30 on ABC. Luka Doncic had a very interesting comment. Obviously, he's trying to stay on and make history. I believe teams are 0-156 when down 0-3 in the playoffs and 0-14 when down 0-3 in the NBA Finals. But Luka Doncic still has hope. Take a listen to what he said in the post-game of Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not over till it's over. So we just got to believe. Like I always say, it's first to four. We're going to stay together. We lose together, we win together, so we got to stay together.
So I would like to know, do you think that the Celtics can complete the sweep, or can the Mavs hold on and force a Game 5?
The Celtics can be the first team to sweep the conference and the finals in NBA history if they win tonight. That's an NBA record. I think they're going to be trying hard to get it. I like them tonight. I think they will win.
So you're saying they do complete the sweep?
I've got my fingers crossed because you let a team off the mat sometimes it works against you. I mean, in baseball, there was never a team that came back from 3-0, and the Red Sox did it in 2004. So it can be done. It just hasn't been done yet. So I think the Celtics should take that mindset into this game and recognize that in the last game they really were quite lucky to win. The Mavs had a 1-point halftime lead. In the fourth quarter, they outscored the Celtics 29-21. They had a 22-2 run, cut the lead to 1 point with 3:37 left, and they could have won that game. And they played pretty well in Game 2 in Boston too. So it's not like they played horrible. They were horrible in Game 1, I give you that. But after that, they've been around. They've been in the game. So they're at home again tonight, and I think that some places betting lines have them a 1-point favorite tonight. 64% taking that to say the Celtics will cover, and 56% of those are saying that the Celtics will win. So I think it will be a close game tonight. I'm rooting for the Celtics. I'd like to see them get that championship. I've been waiting for a long time.
Since 2008.
Yeah.
Paul Pierce. Kevin
And
Garnett.
they'll have 18 championships in the franchise history, which will be a record. They'll break the tie
Break the
they
tie
have
with
with the Lakers.
Yeah. Well, we saw in Game 3, we saw a couple things for the first time. Jason Tatum had a very good scoring night. He had 31 points. Kyrie Irving, finally, after so long, broke his little curse a little bit. It had a very, very good game against the Boston Celtics, and he had a total of 35 points, outpaced Luka Doncic in that regard. And somehow, they still lost. And the Celtics were even without their big guy. The massive X factor one of the massive X factors in the series, because I think Jaylen Brown has had a great series. Drew Holiday has had a phenomenal series. Derek White's had a couple very nice defensive performances and defensive plays. But I think one of the biggest X factors was Kristaps Porzingis getting his revenge on Dallas. And he was out of this game. And they still ended up winning, even though they were down. Arguably, their I think I would give him number 2 best impactful player. I think Jason Tatum is obviously number 1. So I'm with you in this. I picked the Mavericks, as a lot of people did, to win this series, just because Luka Doncic was easily the best player. Kyrie Irving was having a very good end of the Western Conference Finals. Going point for point with Luka. They looked very, very, dominant against the Timberwolves, who were the number 1 defense in the NBA this year. And then you go on to the Celtics, and oh my God, the Celtics lived up to their record. They lived up to the prior series. They lived up to the prior 2 series, where they were easily the most dominant team in the NBA. And there was nothing else to say about this, really. The Celtics, they lived up to who they were. Easily the best team in the NBA, and it wasn't even close. Jason Tatum actually performed very well in this game. 31 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He also had a steal. Didn't have a block. But who had a couple blocks? Derek White. Derek White is an insane guard. I mean, he's going up there. He has the most blocks of anyone 6'6" and under.
He's a great defensive
Second
player.
team all defense. He is a tremendous defender. Drew Holiday has made life a living hell for the Dallas Mavericks. Jaylen Brown also defensively has had a tremendous series. I mean, if we're being honest about this, Jaylen Brown probably is going to win Finals MVP. It's not going to be Jason Tatum. I think Drew Holiday has actually a decent shot depending on Game 4's performance, but I do think it will be Jaylen Brown just because of the fact that
he's played very well.
And also he got the Larry Bird Eastern Conference Finals MVP trophy going into that, and then you go to the NBA Finals. You have the most points per game on the Celtics in this playoff series, the most steals, and you have the 3rd most blocks. Xavier Tillman, by the way, averages 2 blocks a game. Now, he's only played a game. Yeah. But still, going in there, 1 game, 2 blocks.
Not bad.
Anyone off the bench can make a massive impact. Peyton Pritchard's had a horrible series, though.
Yeah.
Well, outside of that, I mean, the Celtics, they have looked like easily the better team. And tonight, I'm agreeing with you. I do think the Celtics complete the sweep, win their 11th straight playoff game, and then sail home and finally get that trophy that they've been looking for since 2008.
I'd say 2 things about Game 3 that I didn't mention before that have been bellwethers for the Celtics throughout the season. Anytime they score more than 15 threes, they're a winner. And the other night they scored 17. So 17 3-pointers that made them a winner. Also assists, 26 assists to 15 for the Mavs. I think this says something about Luka's play. He's and I heard one of the announcers on ESPN criticizing him for this. He's too self-centered. He handles the ball too much. He needs to dish it out more. He needs to be smarter out there, play a little defense. Also, watch the fouls, right? He had 2 fouls when that happened 80 feet away from the basket the other night. He wound up fouling out with over 4 minutes left to go. That could have been. I think that's a big reason that the Celtics won, is because he fouled out. They were on a roll, the Mavs. They were on that 22-2 roll. After he fouled out, they still got close. They got within 1 point. But after that, they faded, and the Celtics won. So I think Luka will get his championship someday. It's not happening this year. I'm hoping. I got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping for a Celtics win tonight. Someday he'll get one, but I think he's got to be a more team-oriented player, and I think he's got to play better defense out there.
Well, you mentioned the better defense, and now this is obviously going viral by how many blow-bys Luka Doncic has. And that's true. In the past 10 years, Luka Doncic is the worst blow-by percentage player in the NBA in the postseason history. And it's within the past 3 series, but besides the Timberwolves. It's been in every other series besides the Timberwolves. And the Celtics is the worst. So the first one would be 59% blow-by against the Thunder, 65.2 against the Clippers. And over 2/3 of the time, he's getting blown by against the Boston Celtics. He is a traffic cone, as everybody's calling him. He is a legitimate traffic cone.
They should keep going at him, the Celtics.
And
go right at him. Blow right by him.
And also, I got a problem with this. And he's done this since the beginning of his career. Stop complaining to the refs. He cries to the refs all the time. I mean, he literally did that when he fouled out. He was complaining on 2 separate occasions, right? He was complaining about the inbound before the inbounds pass. He was complaining down the court. He was taking bad shots and then saying, refs, he was yelling at his bench. Review the foul call when he fouled out. It's like, you're not going to get that respect if you keep moaning and groaning about not getting every single foul call that might be questionable. Hell, 90% of them, Luka's not even fouled on. He's not even fouled on most of those shots that he's complaining about. So I think he needs to calm his temper down, be a more mature player, stop calling the ref's name. It's the boy who cried wolf. If you keep, complaining about every minuscule call, it's the NBA. It's the NBA. People slap. Hell, they don't call travels. Everybody's traveling. There's so many things you can call on. Everybody's getting fouled. But if you complain after every little thing that happens, the refs are not going to believe you. They're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Game too.
It does. It does take his focus off 100% because he's complaining. We saw an inbound.
And he makes mistakes, and it shows. He does make mistakes out there. He's made quite a few mistakes.
I think that this is a learning experience, and it's not the time to. Let's be honest. 156 teams have tried in the playoffs to surpass the 0-3 downfall and 0-14 in the NBA Finals. Mm-hmm. And in the playoffs, only 4 teams have ever reached a Game 7. The Celtics last year against the Miami Heat were the latest team to do it. So I think it's very, very difficult for the Mavericks as they're currently playing to do anything. When Jason Tatum has easily his worst shooting performance in the playoffs so far, and maybe in his career in the playoffs, they still lost. When Kyrie has his best game against the Celtics in 13 games, they still lost. When Kristaps Porzingis is out, who's made a massive impact early in these games and hit some big-time shots, and definitely 100% have some big-time defensive plays with his blocks, they still lost. The Mavericks, this is a no-hope situation. There is no shot. Could they fight for a Game 5 backs against the wall where they're just saying, we're going to give everything we got. If people get hurt, that's what we're going for here. We're just here to play our hardest that we possibly can, and those are the sacrifices we have to make.
Well, they got to win Game 4 first.
That's what I'm saying. Like, just to get to a Game 5, they're going to need to play their absolute hardest. They're going to be in
Boston for that Game 5. So,
well, I picked the Mavericks to win in 6 because I just thought going into this series, coming off of how dominant you were against such a great defense, Games, and now going how they look against the Celtics, it's like this is a completely different level of competition for the Mavericks. We thought the West was so competitive, teams so close. Nuggets, Thunder tied for the same record, but the Thunder got the number 1 seed. Highly competitive. You go up against the Celtics, and look what happens. They get absolutely just destroyed by a team who's easily the better team, the deeper team, the better team. PJ Washington is your number 3. PJ Washington cannot be your number 3 on a championship team. Luka Doncic can't have like 45% usage rate when he needs to distribute the ball more. Kyrie Irving can't be averaging, before game 3, he can't be averaging under 20 points a game against the Celtics.
He hasn't beaten the Celtics since he left them.
In the past 13 games, he's
0-13. 0-13 now, right?
Yeah, it's very, very bad. Even when Kyrie scores 35, they still lose. There's nothing the Mavericks can do.
Doncic fouling out had a lot to do with that loss.
He screams at his bench, "You better bleeping challenge that." No, you were moving.
He was moving, yeah.
So once again,
they did challenge it.
They did, because it's Luka Doncic. You trust him. If he's that animated, you have to assume the refs just made a bad call. And it turns out, no. Luka just lost his mind. And he took accountability for that. I respect that. You took accountability for, complaining and moaning and groaning about the refs. But still, it's up to you to make the big impact plays. And yes, while he has scored very well and has had his impact on the rebounds and the assists and whatnot, overall it means nothing because your team can't get the win. Just like Brady said in his Hall of Fame ceremony. No great accomplishment is a solo accomplishment. It's all about a team.
Yeah.
Well, Luka needs to distribute the ball more. He needs to let his team do some work. And maybe, let's be fair about it, maybe his team can't live up to the height of the competition of the NBA Finals. Then that's on the front office. Get him better talent around him.
Yeah, well, the Celtics are obviously deeper.
100%. Sam Hauser, what a series.
Is Porzingis playing tonight?
I have not heard anything about Porzingis' availability. My guess is no. It actually, the report before Game 3 was very doubtful he'll even return in the NBA Finals in its entirety if it went 7. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's interesting to watch just how much the Mavericks could look that great and be that dominant against the defense that the Timberwolves have had, who just beat the Denver Nuggets and kind of embarrassed them in a couple of those games, to then absolutely look lost against the Boston Celtics. It's kind of shocking.
It is.
So we'll have to wait and see exactly how Game 4 turns out, which is in about an hour and 10 minutes, give or take, hour 15 minutes. So
I'll be watching.
It'll be fun to watch. But let's get into our next topic, which is we're talking about J.J. McCarthy. We kind of hinted this, or I hinted this on Tuesday's show. But Vikings reporter Alec Lewis, this is quite fascinating, of The Athletic, said that it should not be a surprise that Darnold is currently on track to start Minnesota's regular season opener at the New York Giants on September 8th. And also, about a week ago, came out that J.J. McCarthy was taking primarily third-string reps, which is not good for the fact that you drafted him 9th overall, I believe, or 10th overall. So now looking good for a guy who's in a system with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, who's hurt right now. But in that system, offensive line is pretty good. Aaron Jones in the backfield, and Sam Darnold's beating you out. I know you don't like Sam Darnold, and hell, even Nick Mullens is doing better than Sam Darnold. But Kevin O'Connell says, hold up, let's talk about it for a second. In a press conference earlier this week, he talked about the quarterback situation for the Minnesota Vikings. Take a listen.
I've told all 4 of those guys, look, depth charts are great, and it's great to understand where I'm at currently today, but that'll mean really nothing, about, the future. That'll be nothing about a week or 2 out, and most importantly, we played 4 of them last year, including, one guy who was not in our building throughout the offseason or training camp, and relied on him to come in and win a game and then try to, play it out from there.
So I want to know, do you think that the Vikings should be worried about J.J. McCarthy?
No, I think it's too early to be worried. I think O'Connell said early on, Darnold is in position to start. Sam would be the guy based on his spring and where he is in his career and his journey in the NFL so far. He's hit the ground running, takes advantage of the competitive situation. He's in his 7th season. I think he's going to be the starter. I really do. I think McCarthy will have an opportunity to sit and watch for a while. And I think that he might get in if Darnold implodes, which he's capable of doing. But Mullen is, not a bad passer either. He had trouble with the interceptions last year, but when he was in there, he had several over 300-yard passing games. So he is somebody that made mistakes with interceptions, but if he could clean that up, he might be able to challenge Darnold. But I think they're going to let McCarthy sit and watch for a while. They have McCown as their quarterback coach. He's highly regarded. I think the environment's right for McCarthy. The talent on the team is great. Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, the Dallas Turner they drafted, a top defensive lineman. They brought in Grinkle and Grenard, and their O-line is top 10. So, they got a lot of talent. They have Flores as a defensive coordinator who's a quality guy. So I think that the Vikings will be competitive. The quarterback is maybe going to be a little bit more of a game manager. Although with those wideouts that they have, they may be trying to throw it down the field. I think that McCarthy, he never threw the ball too much in college or anywhere in his career, actually. And when you got to get out there and throw it 30, 35 times a game, that may be a little too much for him as a rookie. So I think he'll be on the sideline watching, at least in the beginning.
Well, I was on this. I said that J.J. McCarthy was a massive question mark, and but I did say that this would probably be the best situation just because of the amount of talent you have surrounding you. But I thought, let's take a quarterback ranking. It's not really a mystery quarterback ranking, but let's put J.J. McCarthy up against the other first-round quarterbacks in his own draft class back last season coming out of 2023. So these are the numbers that J.J. McCarthy has. So completion percentage, second. That's pretty damn good. Passing yards a game, dead last amongst those 6 quarterbacks. Touchdowns, dead last. Interceptions, pretty good. Goes on to the football very nicely. Doesn't put it in harm's way. Average depth of target, 4 out of 6. Not great. And big time throws, tied for last. So this clearly shows that maybe the Vikings are expecting him to carry some of the load a little bit. He's putting more strain on his ability to be a quarterback. He's struggled in practice. That's been highly reported. He's been struggling with his footwork. He's been struggling with his accuracy. He's been struggling with holding on to the football and maintaining ball protection. It's not been a good look for a guy who's supposed to be, we heard all during like the pre-draft and mock drafts, him going as high as 2nd overall. And he fell to 10th. The Vikings actually moved up one spot to get him at 10. But still, this is supposed to be a guy who at least I think a lot of people thought would be in the great situation just because Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Powell, Hawkinson, Darrisaw, the offensive lineman, like you said, Dallas Turner on the defense. I think a lot of people thought that J.J. McCarthy would be in one of the better situations, and he's not lived up to really what his numbers and the amount of success he had in Michigan, what it means. Now, I'll also say this, though, like I've been saying, like you mentioned, he has not had the load that the Vikings are probably giving him. This is a guy that averaged 17 attempts a game, 199 passing yards a game. Michigan did not rely on him to carry the load. Most of the other quarterbacks in his draft class averaged 300 yards a game. I think every single quarterback averaged 300 yards a game. Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, all I'm pretty sure had over 300 passing yards a game. Had more touchdowns than J.J. McCarthy.
You think the Vikings may be taking the Green Bay Packers formula and having him sit for several years to watch before he gets in there? Jordan Love sat for 3 years behind Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years behind Brett Favre. And look, it's paid off for them, right? Those quarterbacks were all really, really, really good.
Slight difference.
Yeah.
The slight difference is Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers sat behind Hall of Famers. Sam Darnold is not going to be a Hall of Famer.
That is for sure.
Sam Darnold, it was okay. Like I said, okay. I'm not saying he was good. I'm not saying he was god-awful. He was god-awful on the Jets, but the Jets have not figured out quarterback in a very, very long time.
Right. He got a 1-year, $10 million deal. They believe in his potential.
Right.
He It hasn't been realized yet. If you're only giving him $10 million, I guess you can say that. That's pretty cheap for a quarterback. He's had 56 starts. They also have Jaron Hall and Nick Mullens, so we talked about Mullens a little bit. The Vikings are no rush to throw McCarthy into the fire. He's going to sit, learn, and observe. In the OTAs, McCarthy has not always been very consistent. There's new concepts, new receivers, different footwork. They haven't had any practice in pads yet, though, so maybe that will change things a little bit. Darnold has been better, has better consistency and accuracy. He's taken every first team rep so far. I think you're going to see him as the starter.
And I think, when are we going to see J.J. McCarthy? Because I don't think sitting behind Sam Darnold, it'll help you just because he's a veteran in the NFL. But we're talking about a guy who has no winning experience, who is in an organization that had winning experience, the San Francisco 49ers, last year, but only for 1 year. You were with the Jets before. You were with the Panthers. Both franchises haven't had success in so long.
Yeah. Well, I think that he's got to be excited about the talent on offense, right? He could be a game manager and maybe do okay in the Viking system.
Well, I assume that J.J. McCarthy would be that game manager year one, and apparently he's having trouble doing that. He's not completing passes accurately at a consistent basis. Everyone's saying, well, I guess it's unfair to say this, but the consistency is not there like it has been with Kirk Cousins. And that's something I think the Vikings are going to miss. Yes, Kirk Cousins wasn't great outside of 1 p.m. Yes, Kirk Cousins in the playoffs shrunk against the New York Giants. But he actually was playing, like, for instance, before he got hurt, was he not playing at a very decently high level? He was a top 10 quarterback before he got hurt. He came out straight. Now, the defense was just abysmal, could not help Kirk Cousins in the least, but still, I think that J.J. McCarthy, I expected him to be more of a game manager type, take what his offense gives him, keep it very basic, but apparently he can't even do that. Will things change when it gets into the legitimate training camp and ramp up for the preseason? Maybe. But the fact that Sam Darnold and Nick Mullens look much better than J.J. McCarthy does, I think it should at least be I'm not saying sound the alarms, but that has to mean something.
Yeah,
you drafted him at 10th overall. You thought there was a lot of potential in him. He just went undefeated with Michigan and won a national championship.
According to Jim Harbaugh, he's one of the best quarterbacks ever to come out of college.
The best, he said.
The best quarterback ever to come out of college.
And Jim Harbaugh also said, he's the head coach, so obviously he has to say this when he was, he was the head coach of J.J. McCarthy. He said he could compete for the number 1 overall pick. He said on the herd, don't be surprised that McCarthy goes first overall.
Well,
he went 10th.
Now he's third string.
As of right now, apparently he's third string and squarely behind Sam Darnold. So, not looking good. We're going to take a 20-second break, but afterwards, should the Jets be a little bit worried with Aaron Rodgers' departure from mandatory minicamp and also the benching of his own offensive coordinator? We'll talk about that right after this.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We are the coach of the Harvey Hour. Let's get into our last topic of today's show. So this is not looking good for the Jets, although I think it's kind of expected, especially with the fact that it is Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett, according to SNY's Connor Hughes, Nathaniel Hackett got benched for a 2-minute drill in part of the Jets minicamp, and who replaced him was actually passing game coordinator and quarterback coach Todd Downing. Now, why this is significant is because Nathaniel Hackett, the Jets already tried to get rid of him and look for a replacement OC, and now he's getting benched in the part of minicamp. Now, that's not the crazy part, being benched in minicamp. A lot of coaches switch around in certain situations, but the fact that it's Nathaniel Hackett, who the Jets already tried to get rid of to find a replacement, that's why this is significant. But I would like to know, do you think that the Jets should be worried about their offensive production heading into a very, very important season with Aaron Rodgers coming back?
I think Aaron Rodgers is an idiot for not showing up for a mandatory minicamp. After he started, they said, no more BS. Let the play on the field. Everyone's got to be committed, all of that. And then he doesn't show up for the mandatory minicamp after he didn't play at all last year. I mean, he played 4 plays. Come on, what are you thinking about? This is ridiculous. I mean, that sends a bad message. It gets them off to a very bad start. And so what do the Jets do? I think a very smart thing. Send him a message. Bench his offensive coordinator. Yeah, let him think about that a little bit. You know, we replaced him in the 2-minute drill. Todd Downing is calling the 2-minute drill. And Todd Downing's no slouch either. He's been the OC for 2 teams. He was with the Titans as their OC for 2 years and with the Raiders 1 year as the OC. So he knows what he's doing. And one other thing, the Jets attempted to hire someone during the offseason this past year to oversee the offense and essentially replace Hackett. They didn't do it, but because they knew that probably upset the prima donna Aaron Rodgers, and so they didn't do it. But, you know, and there's also reports out there that Hackett, when they were at Green Bay, and Hackett was the OC for 3 years with Rodgers, that he'd call a play and Rodgers would immediately audible out of it and call some other play. So Hackett downplayed this demotion, but it could be a red flag. I think it definitely could be a red flag. Downing's 2 seasons OC with the Titans and 1 with the Raiders shows that he's got the experience to do the job. If Hackett fails, Downing's going to replace him. And
Really?
Under Hackett's offense, hey, they were 31st overall.
Yeah.
268.6 yards per game was 30th. I'm sorry, that was 30. That was 31st, the total yards per game. 30th in passing with 171 yards per game. 23rd in rushing, 96 yards per game with some pretty good running backs. 29th in scoring, 15.8 points a game. I will give him one break. He did have, what's his name, is his quarterback
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. So
Can't forget about Trevor Siemian, too.
Yeah, got a little. Well, he won a couple games with Trevor Siemian out there. So I give him a little bit of a break there. But hey, Aaron Rodgers, get yourself into the camp there. Show that you're committed to being a player for the Jets at 40 years old, and maybe your selected OC will be consistently calling the plays. We'll have to wait and see.
I think it's funny. Robert Saleh, when he announced that Rodgers would this is an unexcused absence, I think that's why a lot of the media is like, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers missed minicamp, unexcused absence. He's going to be out for the week. It's like maybe it's the unexcused word, but the fact that it got announced now and people inside the Jets, Robert Saleh says, we've known for a very, very long time. Well, why'd you announce it now? You could have announced it months ago. Supposedly, the Jets have known it for months now that Rodgers is planning this trip, planning to go somewhere that's more important than this football thing. What could it be? Who knows? We've heard anything from joking, maybe doing ayahuasca again to advanced drug, the conference or whatever, like an ayahuasca drug conference, or just going on vacation. It's whatever the case may be. But I do think it is important because you're sending a message. They're sending a message. I agree with you that, you know what, this is your OC. We got him for you. Now, and unfortunately, we planned for you to be the quarterback last year. He got hurt within 4 plays. We had a bad offensive line. That's kind of on us. But now we're like, okay, we tried to replace your OC because he was terrible. Now we're benching him for Todd Downing. Could this be a Joe Brady, Ken Dorsey situation like the Bills? Potentially, and I assume if things get to a little bit of a shaky start, rocky start, that I do think we will see a firing of Nathaniel Hackett in very quick order. Very quick order, because Robert Saleh and maybe even Joe Douglas, they're going for their jobs here. Robert Saleh, unfortunately, I think he's a fine head coach. Defensively, he's had a top 5 defense, and he actually had the number 1 graded offense by PFF last year, but he's had a top 5 offense the past 2 years. He has a shot now with Rodgers as his quarterback to maintain his job status as head coach of the Jets. And if the offensive production is not being where it should be, because as you mentioned, as the reports have come out saying, Rodgers would change plays, audible out of plays that Hackett drew up in Green Bay, well, that's a problem. Because at that point, why have Hackett there anyway if Rodgers is just going to change it? So that's why I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens throughout the season, because Nathaniel Hackett, we got to remember, what did Sean Payton say? It's one of the worst coaching performances he's ever seen in the NFL.
Yeah. I don't think he should have said that, actually.
It was a little bit rude
to
say that.
And he apologized for it, actually.
He did, but
Aaron Rodgers, he had the whole season, he had a whole year off, basically, rehabbing from his Achilles tear, and there's plenty of time off between, Christmas and the first spring training and these mandatory this mandatory minicamp. So what the hell? Why didn't he? If he had an event or something, why didn't he just schedule it earlier? Why did he schedule it? Why is the event? I don't know. Nobody even said what the event was. What event was it that he went to? Do we know?
Well, apparently, Colin Cowherd said yesterday, the day before, that it's a vacation overseas. And
vacation. Well, he could have taken a vacation overseas any other time.
That's true.
And he decided to do it in a mandatory minicamp? What does that say about your leadership?
Hold on.
It
Diana Rossini from The Athletic mentioned on Thursday that Aaron Rodgers was taking a vacation overseas and didn't want to reschedule it around Jets practices. Well, he didn't schedule it around Jets practices. He scheduled it during the Jets practices. So that's kind of, and the fact
that's ridiculous.
You know what I find great about it? I find this beautiful. And this shows that the Jets and Robert Saleh are not letting Rodgers take over the organization like he did with Green Bay. They're not letting these fines go. It's unexcused. They're going to fine him for it, and that's that. Now, the good thing is Rodgers made so much money that these fines don't really affect them. But the fact that Robert Saleh seemed uncomfortable, and he has to say that me and Aaron are on the same page here, and he looks very uncomfortable saying that. And not only that, you bench his OC for a 2-minute drill after, trying to replace him. I mean, it's the Jets.
I think it's unacceptable, and I'd be very upset if I was Saleh. Aaron Rodgers knows these guys, as you say, have their jobs on the line. He's getting paid big bucks to be out there with the team. They counted on him. They went out and got pieces for him. They had let him have influence. They said at one point last year, they said it's Aaron Rodgers' team. He's the one calling all the shots. So he's been a distraction, and he's increased this distraction by doing this. It's a very poor way to start. It sets a very bad tone right at the beginning. I think he should be fined heavily for it, and I think that if Hackett does poorly, they ought to can him.
Well, I'll say that. We've seen veterans take time off, but there's two problems with what Aaron Rodgers just did. It's not the fact that he took time off. Veterans do that all the time. The massive, ironic and hypocritical thing that he did was he said back in January, keep the BS out of the building. He doesn't want it no more. 2024, things are going to change.
Yeah.
And he's doing this.
He's the one that's created the most BS now.
Well, he always has done that. Yeah. Time at Green Bay, the things he said.
I think the Jets organization should be furious with him, and that's really a very poor way. Sets a very bad tone right at the beginning of the season.
And yes, he was there for phase 1, 2, and 3. Correct. He showed that he was going to be there, but that was not mandatory.
Yeah, but this is mandatory.
These are mandatory, right. So that's another part of it. You decided to be there early.
Yeah, it's not like it's one day either, right? It was
I think 2 or 3 practices.
3 days.
Yeah. So I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers, first ballot Hall of Famer, hands down. But the fact that you said what you said back in January, and now your actions. By the way, you also were in the running for RFK's VP.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so was Jesse the Hunk Ventura or something.
The boxer, the wrestler.
No, the wrestler.
Yeah. I mean, he's trying to, get in tune with the youth a little bit. Hall of Fame quarterback is your VP. That'll get you some votes. A wrestler, that'll get you some votes.
Well, he might be missing from the inaugural address because he had a vacation to go on.
Ayahuasca trip to go on.
Yeah. Some hallucinogenic drugs to find himself. Yeah.
Darkness retreats. But this is a situation that is quite unfortunate, and also the fact that what he said back in January, it's a hypocritical thing to say, and for me, actions speak louder than words. You decided to take time off now instead of during the the non-mandatory OTAs in camp. You took time off during the mandatory one, and not only that, you're nowhere to be found. Apparently, you're all off the face of the earth. No one knows where you are. Because I think, honestly, if you heard he was taking vacation during mandatory minicamp, not the best.
No.
Not the best at all. And on top of that, like I said, hypocritical thing to say where you're saying, let's leave all the BS out of the building, yet you introduce it back in with these types of actions. That'll wrap up today's episode of the Harvey Hour. We always thank you for the support for the show consistently. Tonight, NBA Finals on in less than an hour. We'll be watching that Game 4. Can the Celtics wrap it up?
Celtics.
Probably be the case, yes. Or will the Mavericks force a Game 5? We'll have to wait and see. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We are your co-hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Yeah, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN, online security.